Welcome back to the Fertility Diaries. I'm Charly.
And I'm Portia, and each week we are chatting all things fertility, ambition, identity, and everything in between.
We're not here as experts, we're just here as two besties, living it, learning all about it, and here for the general chit chat. So, Portia, tell us all about your week.
My week. So I went back to the GP. They called me back. So obviously you can see your blood test results, can't you, on the app? So I'd seen them all. We knew about the Epstein-Barr virus. Everything else was fine. My cervical smear had come back fine. Then the only thing that was a little bit low was my thyroid. Me being me, rang the endocrinologist, didn't I? And booked an appointment. So I've got to see my endocrinologist in April. Spoke to the nurse and they said, look, it's all right, but let's do a full review because you're overdue anyway. So booked that for April. Booked some more blood tests for like a full thyroid panel. The GP asked me to go in on Thursday, so off I went. Got there. This isn't my GP. This is just a random GP from the practice. So the lady who does the blood test rang and was like, "Oh, I've got a note on the system to discuss your blood tests." So when I go, sit down, and he's like, "Hi." I was like, "Hi." He's like, "So what brings you here?" I was like, "You told me to come. I haven't come here off my own back." And he was like, "Oh, right, okay. Well, your blood tests are looking quite normal." He was like, "Your thyroid's quite low." I was like, "I've already rang the endocrinologist," and he was like, "Oh, so I don't need to do anything." I was like, "No, I'm on it." But while he was saying this, right, he was putting these gloves on. Like he was
Okay.
like really making a meal out, putting these gloves on, and I'm thinking, where are we going with the gloves? One glove goes on, and then and bearing in mind he's still discussing my normal blood results. The next glove's going on, and I'm thinking, oh my god, am I going to have to like get
Oh
naked
my
and get on the
dear.
table? What's going on? And I was really watched. I got to the point where I went, why are you putting gloves on?
You actually asked
It
him.
was really distracting me. And it actually distracted me so much. I forgot to ask the titrate of my anti-nuclear antibodies to find out if they were the
Oh,
same as last time.
no.
He did say weekly positive, which I assume is just the same.
Okay.
Um, and then he did that thing, where they try and almost drag the consultation out, like, so he's showing me the screen and he's like, so, these are all normal. And I said, oh, this Epstein-Barr virus thing, I was like, is that where my antibodies have come from? And we were discussing that, and he said, yeah, it'll be where they've come from, but it's not, you've
Okay.
not got active virus. It's not active now, so there's no problems. So I got the impression that he was then a bit like, okay, we've got nothing to talk about now. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I should ask him about peptides, because I feel like peptides are a bit of a buzzword at the minute. And I'd been listening to a podcast the day
Hmm.
before. Also, when I asked him about the gloves,
I was going
he
to say, what was what was he doing with the glove?
He just said he wasn't sure why I was here, but I was like, but we'd already discussed the fact you were still putting them on when I
Yeah. Safety.
yeah,
PPE.
you were still putting them on when we realised that I was here for nothing.
Oh, wow.
It's really weird. It was a very bizarre encounter. I
Yeah.
was genuinely in and out, but he did actually apologise at the end and was like, sorry you've had to come in today. He was
Oh,
like, this could have been a
okay.
phone call. I was like, did it even need to be a phone call? But anyway, I've been
Mm.
listening to this podcast the day before on peptides. Massive buzzword at the moment, isn't it?
Mhm.
Especially like, I'm very involved with like skincare. I'm always looking at latest skincare trends, things like that. I'm, always looking for ways to make myself look younger and feel younger. You've got to be very careful, I think, speaking about this. It's peptides obviously exist naturally in our body. They're just like
Mhm.
chains of like amino acids. They're, what do they call them? Like text messages between cells. They're building blocks for things. We have
Okay.
them in our bodies already. The peptides that you get, like, for your skin
Mhm.
and injectables and things, build on what is already naturally found in your body, right?
Okay.
So I'd listened to this podcast, and they'd said, it was actually really interesting because it was an American podcast, and they seemed to know a little bit more about autoimmune stuff. And then I fell down this TikTok hole last night, actually, about these ANA antibodies in America. They're like really widely known that it's a fertility issue. They just seem way
In
further ahead.
America,
Yeah.
I do think they're just like the bit more advanced over there and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, and they like
It
to.
was quite interesting. Well, they're quite big on, I feel like I mean, this is really generalizing, but in America, you do
Mm,
tend to get things like mold exposure and like the, heavy metals and things. They're a bit more kind of on it with things that like we wouldn't, and maybe we just don't have, I don't know, do we have like the
okay.
same kind of mold problem over here? I don't know. But they just seem quite on it with things like, Lyme disease. I feel like more people in America
Yeah.
seem to have Lyme disease and stuff than we would
Mhm.
hear about in the UK.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if they're just generally more on it in terms of the awareness piece. I don't know. But I'd been listening to this podcast and they were talking about they were talking about ANA antibodies, and then there was one on peptides, and I thought, like, I'm interested in things like this.
Mm.
Let's have a listen. And they were talking about loads of different things. And then they started talking about NAD plus, which isn't actually a peptide. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about NAD plus. A lot of people use it for kind of anti-aging benefits. You can get it in like
Okay.
injectable forms, or the tablet form is like NMN. And I asked him about that because there was a study. Oh my God. Like, when I'm saying this back, this man must have literally been like, what the fuck? I was like, what are your views on peptides? And he was like, well, they're obviously really under researched and they're not regulated. And I was like, right, so obviously you've got things like Manjaro. So you
Okay.
produce that already in your body. What you're doing is taking an enhanced dose of it. I saw a really interesting clip on Instagram the other day. Natalie Crawford, the fertility
yeah.
doctor in America, had been talking about actually how they're starting to look at the impact of GLP-1s and fertility. Now, again, fertility is such an area where there's never any studies done. It's really
It's
difficult. You can't test on
hard.
pregnant women. It's really difficult to test on, in a fertility space. But there's obviously a lot of people who are losing weight through GLP-1s to be able to either access fertility services and things like that. But she was saying there's a lot of evidence coming out now that now that it's more mainstream use of these GLP-1s, that it's reducing inflammation. They're looking at the impact of it on autoimmune, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I said myself, didn't I, when I was taking Manjaro, I
Uh,
felt like there was anti-inflammatory properties for sure.
yeah.
I did actually comment on her post and said that as well, which she said was really interesting. And I've had a few people message me off the back of that as well. I'd said about the GLP-1s and I was saying about that. And then I asked him about NAD plus, and I said, I know it's not a peptide, but like, what are your views on it? And he said that is like not researched at all, really.
Okay.
You can obviously get it. There's a lot of companies you can get like infusions of it. I think the podcast I'd listened to had mentioned these infusions. Anyway, they did this study. This is where I was like, this is where I'm unhinged. I was like, they did this study on white mice.
Did you get your study out? Look, this is the. Oh my God.
I was like, did you see that really interesting study
Yeah.
they did on white mice where they basically had showed that they were it looks at basically keeping your eggs as young as possible, right? So your eggs, it's all these anti-aging properties, you want them to not impact the age of your eggs, so that as women
Okay.
get older, their eggs still stay fresh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he started laughing at that point and he was like, look, it won't hurt. I said, really? He said, yeah, like
Oh wow.
you can get tablet form, it won't hurt. If you want to try it,
Okay.
try it. So obviously I've gone and ordered some.
Of course.
I did, again, the research I've done, tablet form, the NMN seems a bit better. So I'm going to try that. Again, not doctors, guys, don't take any medical advice on me. This was just interesting research I did this week. But then I looked at what the other peptides might be coming, like research they're doing at the moment, again bigger in America, but there's some key peptides that can do things like there's some for like male fertility to
Ooh.
increase sperm motility in cases of low
Okay.
sperm count. There's things like fertility preservation, so they're looking at exploring protecting the ovarian reserve from damage during like chemotherapy and things, like incredible
Oh
for people who are going
wow.
through
Yeah.
things like that. There's also one that can do something with egg maturation. So, like when you're going through IVF and you need your eggs to mature, those that
Yeah.
aren't mature, they can use certain peptides for that. Again, it's just research they're doing at the moment. But I just thought it was really interesting because you hear about peptides mostly in the skincare space, don't you? And I know there's a few other ones like that aren't GLP-1s for like people are starting to look at for weight loss. That none of them are regulated, guys. I would really do your
Do your own
research, and I wouldn't be
research.
buying
Yeah.
anything off anyone who's not a professional in the field. I
Yeah.
just thought it was really
100%.
interesting because you hear a lot, such a buzzword, isn't it, peptides? And it's like they're calling it, what is it, the future of medicine at the moment, because
Yeah.
it's enhancing what you've already got. It's not putting anything synthetic into your body. It's looking at like regeneration instead of like suppression. So like
Yeah.
regenerating your immune system rather than suppressing it and things like
Suppressing it.
that. So I think is something which is a minefield and which I don't really fully understand, but I thought
Mm.
it's just
Good to
interesting to keep
touch
an eye
on.
on. Mm,
Yeah, keep an eye on that because if they're doing research is good, isn't it? Like we said last week, research is always changing. It's good to
mm.
have different research and going
There's a
into
few
everything with
clinics in the
that.
UK that seem to be looking at it again, mostly America. But yeah, if you do a Google on which clinics are kind of, doing research in that field, they do come up. So
Yeah, and good to ask if you're in a similar situation, ask your doctor, see what their views on it as well, like you did.
yeah, he seemed to think that NMN wasn't going to do me any harm.
Okay. Well,
So yeah. And then
touch wood
I
on those.
also started, so I went home at the weekend. Charlie and I are both from Torquay. I think we've touched on that before. So I went back for the weekend and oh my God, the weather. It was literally like being on an abroad holiday. Like, why was it so hot? And then I thought to myself, I hadn't had a glass of wine, right? I've had like fizz and maybe like the odd drink over Christmas, before Christmas, before I started my pre-transfer medications. And I haven't really drank since. And I hadn't drank since May before that because I was obviously preparing for IVF.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it's sunny. I really want a crisp glass of rosé. And that crisp glass of rosé, one obviously went out for dinner with the girls, went for drinks with the girls. And I had my first hangover since July 2024 on Sunday.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I did not feel good. I had a really great time. I wasn't home late. I
Yeah.
was home at actually, I was home quite late. I actually got home at 1:45.
Ooh,
That's quite
that's
late for
late. That's
me,
late these days. That is
isn't
very
it?
late.
Yeah, I had a really good time. But I will say on Sunday, and I'm not sure if it was kind of like that kind of hangover. It wasn't that hangover, don't get me wrong. Like, it wasn't too bad. But that kind of anxiety that you
Mm.
get when you're hungover. It's three things here. I had a really good time.
Mhm.
I'd
That's the main
started
thing.
before we actually went on that night out. I was drinking my first 2 glasses of rosé in the garden with my mum in the sun, which was just gorge. Like, lovely catch up
Yeah,
time.
and
Obviously, I didn't get to see my
you
mum and
don't
dad
I
very
was gonna say,
often.
you don't get to see them that much. You don't go home that much,
No.
that's
So
nice.
it was
That's
really nice. But then I got this like, and bearing in mind I'd eaten healthily during the day,
Mhm.
you know, I mean the Caesar salad I had at dinner, which had about 5 salad leaves, might have led to the hangover, who knows? But
Yeah.
I just felt so guilty the next day. I've not
Oh.
even, it was this real guilt of like, why have I just done that when we're starting this new protocol?
Yeah, but yeah, I know, I guess you can't help how you feel, but, like,
Mm,
it's not like you're doing that every single day. It's a
no.
one-off.
So I took ovulation sticks home with me, right? Bearing in mind
Mhm.
Steve didn't come with me. Steve was up here. And then I ran out of, first of all, I dropped, like, fell at the first hurdle. I didn't have enough ovulation sticks with me. So it got to like Sunday and I was like, oh, like, we won't know what happens next. Got home on Monday and was like, oh, shit, it's a peak.
Ooh.
Like, oh, God. And then
And
I
what day was
ovulated
that?
Monday. So I got home the day I peaked.
Yeah.
But, it's obviously not ideal. And
Yeah.
then I ovulated yesterday. So I've had to start my steroids and my progesterone already.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel really underprepared, and I was like, "Oh shit, what am I even meant to be doing?" Like, I couldn't remember what I was meant to be doing. Got myself in a right pickle.
I think our cycles may have synced up, Portia.
Had they?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I'm ovulating too.
Hey.
Wow.
Oh, well, a podcast will do that to you. And then
We're
the
not
only other
even sure
things
that.
in my week were update on Bonnie Blue. She's definitely
Oh, yeah.
pregnant. If you follow her
Okay.
main channel, you'll be like, no, she's not. She's wearing a fake bump. If you follow her
Yes.
BTS on TikTok, which I'm a big fan of, honestly, that girl, she's a great influencer.
Mm.
Like, she just chats away while she's doing her skincare, chats away while she's having her Chinese, talking about the rage bait with the fake bump. And when she stood up in her video the other day, you could see a real bump.
Okay.
So I think she's definitely pregnant, and I
Yeah,
like
because
that
I
side of her.
saw someone, I mean, it just flicked up on my, page on my TikTok, but she was like, "Bonnie Blue has a fake bump," and I was like, "Oh my
She's stuck,
goodness,"
yeah, she
like,
does on her like, she's a
yeah.
rage bait, so it's her job. And she said on her behind the scenes, if you're falling for that rage bait, like, that's on you. What did you expect?
Oh, yeah,
But
okay,
she's
yeah.
been in Mexico for spring break.
Mhm.
Doing whatever she does out there. But her behind the scenes account, I have to say, and it's so funny because the comments on that behind the scenes account on the
Mhm.
videos are like, never thought I'd see the day where I became a Bonnie Blue fan. Like, all the girls are there, like, oh my God, like, what are you using on your skin? Like, what toner is
Oh.
that? Like,
Oh my
honestly,
goodness.
great influencer over
Yeah,
there from that
well, she's doing.
perspective. Like, really normal sound girl is what I
Yeah.
would say. And then some other really nice news was there's an influencer. She actually hosts the Nip Tuck podcast, which we all know is my fave, Ashley
Mhm.
Stobart, who she hasn't shared too much about it, but she's pregnant with her 4th child. And I just thought it was a really nice story to tell everyone this week. Not that it's my story to tell, but she's, announced it publicly. But her AMH when she was 32 was less than 1.
Oh,
And she
wow.
has gone on, I think she already had 1 child then. She's gone on to
Yeah.
have another 3. And I just thought for the low AMH girlies out there, I thought that's a really, and I did message her on Instagram the other day and just say, like, it is such an inspiration
Mm.
for people to know that, I think people
It's
define, it's
possible.
like we were saying the other week, you can get so, do you let the AMH define you? Or
Mm.
actually, you know, is it possible to go on and
Well,
have,
Ashley Sobart is showing that it is possible, and also,
yeah,
like, I spoke to someone a few weeks ago who has just had she had a successful round of IVF, and she's just had her baby, and she had a very, very, very low AMH.
true.
So, and she managed to get, I can't remember the exact amount of embryos, but she got a good amount of embryos,
Good.
and so like it is possible. So that's really positive.
Yeah.
Love that.
So tell us about your week, Charlie.
Okay, so you'll be proud of me. I
Okay.
have, well, put a consultation form in with the doctor.
Oh, proud.
So
Well
I
done.
am waiting to hear back from them. I'm actually going to discuss a couple of things. Uh, I've basically keep getting lightheadedness and it's happening more often. So I'm wondering, when you Google, you go down a rabbit hole, ask ChatGPT. I'm wondering if it's due with my iron levels. I don't want to start supplementing with iron if it's not that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them about that. And then whilst I'm there, I'm also going to be like, so what tests can I get before I go into our next fertility round, and just
Mhm.
do a bit more research into it, ask them if there's anything that I can get, before I start spending money on stuff, just so I can have like a clearer picture of my fertility. As we've
Mm,
mentioned before, I haven't really had any extra tests or anything. And, I think that we just focus so much on Tony that, not that I'm getting forgotten, because a lot of my results are coming back and it's like, you're fine. But you just never know, do you, if you haven't got those
no.
tests? And so it's good to have a bit more knowledge. So, like I said, you'd be proud of me. I finally put that
Yeah.
consultation form in. I'll probably hear in another week or so.
Yeah.
Um, they'll ring back, hopefully get some blood tests, see what they say, and then go from there. So that's quite good for my
Well
week.
done.
And also, uh, we had our first, this loveliest lady came up to me. So we had a soul fries event on Friday at a brewery that we go to quite regularly. And it was quite funny because she comes up to me. So we're like really busy, like massive rush. And she comes up to me and she's like, I just want to say, and I was like, oh, here we go. She's going to be like, oh, your fries were amazing. Because
Obviously.
I don't want to blow
Duh.
our own trumpet, but we get that quite a lot. I mean, Tony cooks them all, but that's mostly the feedback we get at breweries. And
Yeah.
she goes to me, I am loving the podcast. And I was like, oh my
Oh.
goodness. I didn't really know what to say because I was a bit taken aback. Firstly, I was expecting her to be complimenting the fries, but actually she was just like, it's just so lovely. Like, it's really good. She just had positive words to say. So,
Mm.
if you're listening, I just want to say thank you. And that really made my evening, actually. And
Oh.
I went and told you, I was like, I've got something really exciting to tell you. So yeah,
Honestly, it means the world, and we
yeah,
love it when you reach out and, send us
yeah.
messages and give us ideas or dilemmas. So do keep sending them in, guys, and keep letting us
It's
know
just
what
amazing,
you
isn't it?
want.
Because I think we're just chatting to each other,
Mm.
but like people are actually listening, and like are people like even going on to another lady. Me and Nala, my dog, go to this cafe quite a lot on our dog walks, and the ladies there are super friendly, like really really nice. And I was collecting my coffee one morning, and one of the lovely ladies said to me, I just want to say, like, I'm really enjoying your podcast. I was like, this is amazing. And she said, we just didn't have anything like that back in my day. So it's really good
Oh.
that you're talking about it. And I was like, I'm going to have to go tell Tony. Also, I'd like to talk about the plastics documentary. We've both watched it, haven't
On
we?
Netflix.
On
What's it
Netflix.
called?
The Plastic Detox.
That's it.
So I was quite excited to watch this, and I actually saved it for the evening for me and Tony to watch together.
Lucky Tony.
Yeah.
Steve, I would not get Steve watching that in a million years. I will be honest as well. Charlie told me about it and I said, right, I'll go watch it then. And then it's
Mm.
taken me 2 attempts to finish it 'cause I was
Yeah. I mean, we were getting towards the end, and Tony was like, has it finished? Is it nearly finished? But I wanted to see like the outcomes of what
yeah.
happened, because there is some positive. I don't want to spoiler if anyone does really want to watch it. There's some like positive outcomes on there, which is really nice, and that's kind of the bit I wanted to get to. It is testing. So they test people's urine for plastics in their urine. So they're
Uh-huh.
testing couples. I think it's 5 couples.
Yeah.
And but the main tests are on the men's sperm. So
Mm.
they're looking at the
Quick and
concentration of the
easy though, isn't
sperm.
it? 70
Yeah.
days. Was it 70 days they said to regenerate
Yeah.
sperm?
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
it's easy. Apparently, I mean, we all know it's easier to test on men. So that's how
Then
they've
how are
done
you
it.
testing that on women's ovaries like this? It's so
Yeah.
difficult, isn't it? But
Exactly.
once
So
again, easy on the men.
yeah,
Too
but
hard on a woman's cycle.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there were improvements all round,
Mm.
mostly. But I mean, we came away from watching that, and then Tony was like, It's actually quite fascinating. Like, there's a lot of plastics. Essentially, tell you to become plastic free is nigh on impossible. I just don't even know how you could completely cut plastics out of your life.
Well, I did have some thoughts on this actually, because when I
Mm,
first watched it, I was like, oh God, there's plastics everywhere.
yeah.
And then I thought to myself, well, it goes back to what we said the other week. I don't want to live a life of unscented soap and feeling like a
Mm.
cave woman. So I have gone down a bit of a deep dive into cleaner products. And
Oh, yeah.
I've been filming some bits and pieces. I'm going to share them next week. But there are a lot of brands that are more kind of, high street brands, more luxury, like the sort you find in Space NK vibes,
Mm.
that smell gorgeous and are clean, and other clean products. I've actually just ordered some because washing detergent is meant to be one of the worst
Yeah.
offenders. That tallow and ash, I've not tried it yet, but I've ordered the sample pack. It's coming. Actually, I think it might be coming today.
Oh, that's
I'm going to give
exciting.
that a try because that is clean. Is like one of the cleanest you can get. Because I am,
Yeah.
ideally, we were talking about me scent boosters,
Mm.
Lenore. This is clean stuff, so I'm going to give that a try. And actually, I will share some of the clean beauty products I found and toiletries and stuff because it's a lot easier than these days. It's a lot easier than you think. It's
Yeah.
things like just wearing, instead of your polyester knickers, get some cotton
Hmm.
ones.
Cotton.
There's a lot of products that you maybe wouldn't think are that clean that are. In your kitchen, for example, like, do you really want to be using like plastic pans and utensils? Probably not anyway. We know that it's quite an easy fix and not an expensive change to make some changes, like, a BPA free kettle and a BPA free water bottle. Most of them are. So I do think there are quite a lot of easy ways to not completely take out the plastics, but minimize it for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Like things like, the water filter. We've got a glass
Mm.
water filter, glass containers, like even, but things like, your bedding, if you just wash that, because a lot of the times you just want your bedding to smell really fresh. If you, the ones that you've got samples of, if they're really good, use those. Easy swaps.
That the couples on that documentary really made me laugh. That
Oh, yeah.
guy, he was waiting for his moment. I'm sorry, I can't remember what his name
He
was.
was
He
hilarious.
waited for that moment, and it was his wife literally set him up and went, what is it you say? And he was like, I'm not a human dildo, Julie. It's like, and he just his little face when he said it. He was like so
Oh,
proud of himself. Like, there's one for you. I'm not a
he
human dildo. Like, all right, hun.
he was good. He actually lost quite a bit of weight in that documentary at the end, towards the end
They
as
looked
well.
so happy when they had their
Mm,
baby as
I
well. I
know.
was like, oh, that's lovely.
I
And I didn't
know.
realize the babies were born like only recently, weren't they, this year?
Yeah,
They must have
February,
been
I
waiting for
think,
them to be
March.
born to,
Release the doc.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I know I've seen quite a few things of like how terrifying it is and how scary. I'll be
Mm,
honest, it didn't scare me. And it what it did do, given that I wasn't really that interested in anything to do with plastics, fragrances, anything, endocrine disruptors, even though I have endocrine disorders, which is interesting because you'd never get an endocrinologist go, oh, are you using fragrance free products? Like, no one's ever
mm.
having that conversation. And I see an endocrinologist every 6 months. So
That's
bizarre.
interesting because surely if it was that effective, they should be asking. That should be one of the
It's
questions they
Western
should ask straight
medicine,
away.
though.
Yeah,
Don't know.
true.
Who knows? But anyway,
Mm,
did prompt me to do some more research. And as I said, I am over the moon with what I found because it means
mm.
I can actually pick cleaner products without having to make massive changes to my lifestyle and having to feel like I'm,
Okay.
a bamboo,
Yeah.
non-fragranced,
Living in the woods.
living in the woods vibe. So yeah, we will share more on socials this week. So keep an eye out
Yeah.
for the brands we found that
That's
are
exciting.
clean and bougie.
That's what we want. A little bit of clean, but a little bit bougie.
So we thought today we would have a chat. Last week we spoke about, what happens when you are trying and you then need tests. So we thought it would be natural to carry on to actually what happens if you do need IVF. So I do think this is quite an important topic because if you are eligible for funding for NHS IVF, like you, Charlie, I
Mhm.
think they your GP probably said to you like that the next step is IVF off. Here's the what I don't know
Yeah.
what happened.
So we had to wait for up to a year, I think it was. And
Mm,
then they sent through a load of information, not a load of information, just a couple of things. And the main thing was choose from these clinics. So they give you, I think it was four or five clinics that we had to choose from. So I
yeah.
had a quick look at them, but we know from previous podcasts how I chose my clinic. But that's literally it. And then you go from there to the clinic. But yeah, I guess for you, it must have been different.
Yeah, so for me, no one's offering me a NHS
Hmm.
IVF. So it was kind of a case of, we can't find anything wrong with you.
Hmm.
Enjoy. And it then, as I said, took us what, about 2 years to actually think, oh, should we do IVF? Because there was no one. I think it's quite an overwhelming feeling. And again, I think this goes for egg freezing. So if you're someone in the position of thinking, do I want to freeze my eggs? Even looking into like, how do I do it? Where do I do it? How much is it going to cost? All of
Sperm
that can be
donors.
really overwhelming. Yep, sperm donors, like where
Hmm.
do I get the sperm from if I'm, same sex couple, or, single by choice, single mum by choice.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think it's an important subject for us to talk about because it definitely stalled me in my journey because it just felt too overwhelming. So
Yeah.
I would say, if we're talking about where to start, so you're having this fertility issues, you think you might need IVF. As you said, if you're going to have NHS funding, they will give you a list of clinics, and then
So
what?
for
So when
me,
do you have to let them know? How does it
yeah, I
work?
think I was going to say for me as a being very indecisive person, that's probably a little bit better because
Yeah,
it gives you like, a list to choose. You have to actually choose from. You have to contact them.
yeah. Oh, do
Yeah.
you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm,
Whereas
I'm
the
pretty
world is
sure.
your oyster when it comes to if you're
Mm.
self-funding. You've probably jumped ahead a bit there. When you first think, right, we need IVF, are you going to get NHS funded IVF? Because it's not just one criteria. There's a few, isn't there? You can
Yeah.
get the your integrated care board or whatever they're called,
Integrated care systems.
system, that's it.
Hmm.
So there is a spreadsheet you can access online. If you just type it into Google, like integrated care system IVF, it comes up and it's this big table. Don't know how regularly it's updated, but it'll basically have every single of those care systems,
Yeah.
which you can find out which care system you're under by looking at your GP or just asking your GP, but they'll know.
Hmm.
So for example, mine is Black Country. It's not like, it's not like my council or anything. It's just a random name for
Mm.
this board. They will then break it down on this thing as to what the criteria for to access IVF services. So how many rounds you'd be entitled to. Will they accept you when you've got one of you's got another child? Age requirements, BMI, any other. They have like an other thing. So if you've some people will not let you have IVF, NHS funded IVF if you've had private IVF. There's so many things that go into it.
Wow.
Smoking, non-smoking, that goes into
Yeah.
it as well. I did see an NHS calculator.
Okay.
But I didn't
So
see
you
the
can,
point in doing that, if I'm honest with you,
yeah.
because I'm like, surely you just look at your ICB and be like, yes, no, yes, no.
What does the
But
what does the NHS calculator do?
it was a private
Does
company. It wasn't like an NHS calculator, but it worked out
I
whether you
see.
would get,
Okay.
yeah, it just asked you the questions that you, I mean, at the end of the day, your board is your board, unless you're planning on moving
Yeah.
house, which,
And
when you think of the
actually,
cost of IVF, would it be so
yeah,
if
but
you're renting?
I looked into not look into moving house because I remember my friend. No, not look into moving house, but I looked at like what we could do to maybe move back to Devon. I think there was more rounds available if I moved back home, but you have to be registered with your doctor for at least a year
Do
before.
you?
Yeah, so
Oh,
you
I didn't
can't
know
even. I
that.
don't know if that's changed now. That was obviously a few years
Probably. I think
ago.
I actually saw that as
Yeah.
because some of them are even funny, like you have to have been seen like in the process before like your 35th birthday and treatment has to be
Oh.
concluded within 6 months. It is wild. And some places are so much more generous than others.
Yeah.
I was looking at the NICE guidelines actually, because the NICE guidelines basically say that everyone should be offered 3 rounds of
Mhm.
NHS funded IVF. Under 40, sorry, under 30, something
Okay.
like that. Anyway, you
Yeah.
can go and have a look at it.
Mhm.
But only four something like 40 out of 42 of the care boards were not following those NICE guidelines. And
Wow.
some of them were trying to reduce, the ones who were offering 3 were trying to reduce them down to 1.
So that just goes down to funding, doesn't it? That's just
It
money
does. Well, you've got to
available.
think these boards, in fairness to them, the funding they've got's got to cover everything, hasn't it? Like social, probably
Mm.
like social care budgets. You think like people who are really unwell. I suppose it
Yeah.
depends on the demographic of your area as to what they're going to offer as well. Like some of the
Yeah.
boroughs in London were offering like 3 rounds, regardless of whether, because most places like are
One.
quite strict on having, if you have a child from a previous relationship, if one of you has a child, then you can't have any funding. Some places you can get it. Like you were just saying in Devon, if we'd moved back to Torquay, we would have got one free round. Some of these London boroughs were very generous, and I wonder what's driving that. But it varies so significantly. And there's one of our followers, actually, I was watching her story this week. She's actually had her funding cut like midway through. I think she was due to have maybe 3 rounds, for say, for example, and she's just had an email like, from the 1st of April, we're only offering one, so you've had it
Halfway
now.
through her treatment.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And like
you'd think
mentally,
they'd
that's not
wait.
okay.
No.
You think you've got a plan, And then suddenly that plan gets derailed.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. But the BMI one I think is really interesting. There was two things
Yeah,
I thought were really interesting. One, it goes up to 30 for NHS, right?
yeah,
And only, I'd say about 75% of them will say BMI between 19 and 30.
yeah.
There are quite a lot of boroughs that don't have a lower end BMI, which I thought was
Wow.
interesting. And then the other part, which I thought was interesting, is that you will probably be going to the same clinic that if you were paying privately, they would accept your BMI up to 35.
That's crazy, isn't it? And it's 30 on the NHS round.
Yeah. And I think the pressure for people to, I see quite a lot of content online of people trying to lose the weight to qualify for the NHS funded IVF. I've also seen
Yeah.
some content recently of people saying, actually, do I try and lose this weight and get my NHS round? You know, like our listener who wrote in the other week, she'd lost 5 stone to get her
Yeah.
NHS round. Some people I think are thinking, well, hang on, I could just go abroad because abroad, quite often clinics abroad will accept up to about 40, up to BMI of about 40,
Mm.
maybe even higher. So do you wait and try and lose the weight, knowing that you're getting older every year, that
Yeah.
fertility may be declining, that pressure of having to lose the weight, you know, the pressure of actually, you might not be in a great headspace because of your infertility anyway.
Mhm.
And then you've got this pressure. Who's helping you? How are we
Or no,
asking these people to
well,
lose weight?
you say that. I have a friend at a gym that I go to, and she was telling me that when she was trying to get her NHS funded rounds, that all she was told was just to lose weight.
No
Just lose
help.
weight, no guidance. Yeah. Like,
And BMI is so archaic anyway, isn't it?
yeah, well, it's body mass index, but it doesn't take into account, if you've got more like a lot more muscle. So say you've got a BMI
Yeah.
of 32, but you're very healthy and you're
Mm.
more muscle. Like, does that mean then it's just completely cut off? Sorry, no, you can't have the NHS funded round. You have to get your
Yeah.
BMI down. But then you've got people who are all normal BMIs, like 25, who may be eating processed foods, not very healthy, and they go straight into the
Mm.
NHS funded round. That's,
And
yeah,
actually, if you think
yeah,
about, you know, they look at this of like live births, don't they? Like they're
yeah,
having a live birth. Is the person who's got a normal BMI but lives off McDonald's 3 times a day healthier than the person who might have a BMI of 31 who eats whole foods and a Mediterranean diet?
mm,
Maybe is just eating a higher proportion. What about people who've got polycystic ovaries who find it, you know,
yeah,
they're going to have fertility problems? These are probably the people who are going to
need
require
the help.
IVF, and they're going to be the people who struggle to lose the weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, height and weight, that's literally what we're looking at
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. And I think it is really difficult because again, you've got a lot going on. You're already, you know, struggling with something, and then you're adding another layer on of having to try and
Mm.
lose this weight. Again, it is really interesting that only some of the clinics have a lower end BMI, because people with a lower BMI than 19 are probably going to have quite significant health problems
Yeah,
potentially.
and problems with their menstrual cycle
Yeah.
anyway. So that's like obviously one of the most important parts of the fertility treatment. So
Yeah.
yeah, wow. Yeah,
And
it's
what
just
help are
a
they having to gain weight if they need to
well, we
meet the
don't know. Probably the
criteria?
same
Yeah.
thing or gain some weight.
Yeah.
Like, it's not very
Really,
helpful,
really
is
challenging,
it?
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the NICE guidelines, it gave give us one thing, Charlie, which we thought would be quite useful given our recent debate on our socials over what
Oh,
constitutes a full cycle. The NICE guidelines would give the definition of a full cycle as including the transfer of all fresh and frozen embryos, not just the initial fresh cycle. So for them, a cycle is your egg collection and the transfer of
mhm.
all of those embryos. That's one cycle.
Yeah, that's what I would have been offered on the NHS, but I sadly didn't get to the point of frozen embryos. So I didn't get to put any frozen ones back in. So now when we're going into it again, we're gonna have to fund everything ourselves right from the beginning. But at least we've
Do you
settled
know
our
what
debate
though?
of the cycle.
Does that not? I was always kind of thinking, why would people have had a private round
Mm,
before? When it said, you know, some places won't let you have NHS funded if you've already had a private round. That is
yeah.
a pure example of why you might, because you could do the trial and error cycle privately, and then the
Yeah.
one where you're going to get all your embryos transferred, going on the second round. But then you wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to, you know, if you had to. I suppose it's fine if they're allowing that. If they're not, you couldn't exactly go in
Yeah.
and say 150 going left's not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Hit
I
me with
need
a
more.
375.
Yeah, give me more.
So yeah, it's really unfair and it's a complete
Mm.
postcode lottery. And if you're renting, to be honest, you're probably better off moving house.
Yeah. Yeah, although you got to stay with the doctor for a year. So
Oh yeah, bear that in mind.
yeah.
So we've looked at funding of cycles as well.
Mhm.
So there are a few options if you do need to fund. If you're thinking, and again, this even goes down to like egg freezing and sperm donation as well. But
Yeah.
total cost of an IVF cycle is probably about 5 to 9 grand on average.
A lot of people don't have like £9,000 lying around. Like who had who?
No, and the average
Mm,
to actually have a baby is like 2 to 3 cycles.
yeah,
So you're then
exactly.
looking at what, 11 to 27K.
Wow. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot.
So you can do pay as you go,
Mhm.
just pay per round as and when. There's finance options, like 0% finance, I think is offered at quite a lot of
Mhm.
clinics. One consideration of that I hadn't thought of when I was looking at this was if you do get pregnant and you go on maternity leave, you've got to make sure you can afford those payments.
Yeah.
As they're still
There's
going to come out even if you're on, if you might be on like stat mat pay.
Imagine if you're like, sorry, can't pay now.
Can't pay for my baby. um,
God.
I don't know how common it is, but clinical trials sometimes reduce the cost.
Yeah.
Egg sharing, I think that's a really interesting one. I do know people who've done that before, you basically agree to donate, like say half your eggs or a proportion of your eggs. But the problem
Mhm.
is, what if you don't make as many
And I
embryos as you
wonder, like,
want?
do you have to agree to that before you go into it? I guess so. Like,
I don't know the
yeah,
logistics of it
exactly. Because
and what,
imagine if
where,
you,
where, when can you, take back
yeah,
consent? I suppose is
exactly.
what quite a
Because
big,
what happens
yeah,
if you just get two eggs and then
yeah.
you're like, oh, I guess it's
Yeah,
good.
and I think there's some NHS clinics that you can use that you're still paying privately, but they're a bit cheaper because they're through
Mm,
the NHS. So I'm not sure. It's probably worth looking to see if you've got any of those in your area as well, if it's something you're looking at.
mhm.
And there's also those companies where you can. It's like a money back guarantee, isn't it? It's like you pay a higher
Yeah.
price for the IVF, but then if it doesn't work, you don't end up with a live birth.
Mhm.
You get a
Some
percentage of
money
it
back.
refunded, or all of it refunded. I think they've got really quite high criteria to get approved in the first place, though, because
Okay.
you've got to be on paper looking like you. This is the
Gonna
thing. Me
work.
and Steve probably would have been approved for that because there's nothing on paper wrong with us.
Mm.
Probably not now because we're like older, but I don't know what the criteria is. But if you think 3 failed transfers down the line, we probably would have either had another one. I was going to say to look forward to another one in the pipeline,
And yeah, another in the
or our money
works.
back. And
Yeah.
but then I suppose, but what if you got pregnant, you went and did that and got pregnant on the first round? You've got the outcome you wanted at a much higher price. You're paying for the worst case scenario in those situations.
Mhm.
Those companies do exist though, and I'm sure they. The
Yeah,
thing
there's
is though,
quite a few
you've
out
got to
there.
think their approval criteria is going to be really high. It's like insurance. It's like holiday insurance. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to need it. But for the ones who, and this is the thing, but 9 times out of 10, they're not paying out. But
Yeah.
every now and again, they're going to have to pay out. So they're only going to be approving people who are on paper likely to have a child. It's a
Mhm.
numbers game for them, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's what it is with it. It's like basically insurance for IVF,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a lot more expensive if it does work. But then you've got what you wanted. It's a
Yeah,
hard one,
exactly. Is
but it's
it
an
double-edged
option.
sword? Is that what it's called? Double-edged
Yeah,
sword? Yeah.
and it's an option. So I think again, things like low AMH, you're not going to be accepted and stuff on
Mhm.
paper that, but actually, like we've just said at the beginning, you still might go on to have a baby. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
minefield, but something to look into, definitely. So when we think about egg freezing, the average cost for egg freezing is like 3 to 6 grand because you're paying for the bulk of the IVF.
Mhm.
You're paying for that whole, the egg collection, the anesthesia, like the transfer is the cheaper bit, which is ironic because when you go for a frozen transfer, it still costs a fortune.
Yeah.
But you're still paying that like kind of upfront cost. And also sometimes you might need more than one cycle to get enough eggs for,
Mhm.
a viable embryo. And also then you've also got to remember in the future, if you'd want to use those eggs, you're going to be paying for the other part of IVF, so fertilize them,
So
embryo
mm.
development. So yeah, it can be costs can add up for that. But it's an insurance policy. You might never need to use
Yeah.
them, but if you're in a position of freezing them, it's because you want an insurance policy, isn't it?
Well, it's like the sperm we've got frozen. Like
Mm,
that's we might not even use that at all, but it's
yeah.
there just in case. Because if the next results come back of Tony's sperm and we still have nothing there, we probably will have to think about using those frozen ones. But if we get some good sperm, we'll obviously use the fresher ones, and then
Yeah.
those ones that we've been paying for this time. But like you said, it's
It's
insurance policy.
insurance.
Yeah.
Donor sperm is 500 to 950 on average.
Okay,
And
that's actually not that bad.
donor eggs, 4,500 on average for about 6
Okay.
eggs, half a dozen.
Wow. See, that
Depends
that
on if
just
they're
shows.
frozen or fresh as well, because you can actually get frozen eggs, or you can actually find a donor that will give you them fresh.
Okay. That price difference as well just shows, doesn't you, how easy it is to get sperm and how obviously much harder it is for donor eggs.
Well, especially if you're a same-sex male couple, because you're needing
Yeah.
donor eggs and a surrogate.
Yeah.
So they're already disadvantaged from a cost perspective
Wow. Yeah.
to have children.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Gosh.
good
I
luck
think we've
picking
cut.
your clinic, guys. There's some considerations
Yeah.
from us. And if you're feeling like it's a minefield, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of where to look to get started. Between the lines then, Charlie, what have you got for us today?
So I am going to talk about BMI. And if you've been told to lose weight for fertility treatment, or if you just want to lose some weight. So I'd like to give some tips on how to help you with that, seeing as because it made me think with the my friend I spoke to the other day when she said she wasn't given any advice. So hopefully this will help some people.
Yes.
So my first tip number one, would be to start tracking your calories. Not to be restrictive, but just to be more aware of what you're eating and portion sizes. And to put, just for an example, when I put on a bit of weight after I came back from New Zealand, I started tracking my calories again. And I was quite shocked, actually. I mean, I was
Mm,
eating pretty healthy and I was like, oh, this is really good. Like, it won't be that much. And each like meal was probably maybe like 200 calories over of what I should have been eating.
yeah.
And that adds up. And then I was
Mm,
snacking in between, like cheese, for example. I wasn't even like weighing it before. Sprinkling on, I was surprised at how much
yeah.
20 grams of cheese was, you know? So, and I'm like, I was thinking I'm eating quite healthy and all this. So it's just mainly for awareness. So it's somewhere to start if you're
Yeah.
not tracking your calories. Try not to get too obsessed with it. Tip number two would be creating a small calorie deficit. So you're not extreme dieting, just making small changes here and there. Like I said, cutting down a little bit of the cheese, for example. You don't need to eat as little as possible. You just need to eat appropriately for your body. So, tip number three would be to prioritize protein for every meal. So, just try and get, even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, have a look at different protein sources, trying to add them to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you struggle getting your protein in for your meals, there are some really good protein powders that you can buy that are not full of like the nasty stuff. Actually, I've got a really good book recommendation here, The Fertility Kitchen by Charlotte Grand. And she actually recommends a really good vegan protein powder, which is one of the ones that I have. And if I feel like I haven't reached my protein goal of the day, I will make a smoothie, add some protein in. You can also do that. Put it on your porridge in the morning if you like that. So yeah, there's ways to get protein in, protein and fiber, two very important um, food sources to keep you full and
Yeah.
your body healthy. And then tip number four, try and increase your daily movement. So just try and get out for a walk, stand up a little bit more. It seems like a really simple one, but even doing that rather than focusing on gym workouts a lot of the time, you're getting some extra steps in. For example, I will always take the stairs rather than an escalator.
She actually does.
I do. I also I don't really like escalators. But it's not that. And you'll see me like if when we're at the airport, for example, Tony will always get on the escalator and I'll be on those stairs with my mini suitcase and I'll always beat him. So I'll always be there first. So, just things like that's a little challenge. Um and strength training, very important. If you can
Mm,
get yourself to a gym, I think strength training is one of the most important exercises you can do. The more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn, essentially. So if you can, try and get yourself to the gym. You can even do home workouts with, you can improvise at home, get your water bottles, do some strength training there, and you can
mm,
easily just type into YouTube, you know, at home strength workout, and then you've got a few things there. And my final tip would be to try not to put pressure on yourself and be kind to yourself. I think that's really important, especially if you're going through fertility treatment. You've already got enough going on as it is. The goal isn't just about weight loss, it's about supporting your body through the fertility journey and just having a healthy body in general.
mm.
So, yeah, there are my five tips for helping you lose weight or lowering
Lovely.
that BMI.
Charlie, what's your personal profile if people want to get some more
My
tips?
Instagram is Charlie Hearn Fit, but Hearn is spelled Hoen. So that's the joys of changing my name, my married name. It used to be Moss. Now it is Hearn.
You've
So
been
yeah,
married 2 years and I thought it was Hoen.
yeah, well, that's like everyone else. They're always like, Mrs. Hoen. And I'm like, this is
I
why I
would have
didn't
said
want to change
Hoen.
my name.
Hearn.
Moss is so much easier
True that.
to read. Anyway, but yeah, should we go on to our dilemma?
Yes, we've got a dilemma.
Okay.
I'm going to keep this one anonymous. It was sent in to us.
Hmm.
So I have a
Go.
dilemma. I have been trying to conceive since the summer of 2024. I have had 2 pregnancies in this time and both ended in miscarriages after a heartbeat, etc., was seen in earlier scans. We have had full testing and found out that our last pregnancy loss was due to a rare chromosome issue, and we were told that we have a less than 1% chance of that reoccurring. I have just found out I am pregnant again, but don't know how to mentally deal with it. Do I just tell myself it will likely be another loss not to get my hopes up? Or do I feel hopeful and positive? It's so hard to know what to do. My husband is just acting as if I'm not pregnant, as I think he is just not prepared to go through the heartbreak of getting his hopes up again, just for it to be dashed later down the line.
Mm.
What do you
Aw.
think?
Well, I think it's actually that's a hard one because you want to be hopeful, like she
Mhm.
said, and also you're gonna. It's okay to be scared,
Yeah.
and I think maybe if there's a way of trying to feel the emotions in between those two, like I'm very much live in the moment, and I feel like she's pregnant now. Like enjoy that in the moment for now, and try not to. It's just so much easier said than done, isn't it? Try not to worry. Like there's a lot of people who always be like, "Don't worry."
Yeah.
And it's so easy to say that, but actually you are going to worry. It's not like you'd be like, okay, I won't worry.
Yeah.
I think if there's any way that she could find, or if you could find a way of feeling both those emotions, then that's okay. And then maybe I think you need to communicate with your husband. I
Mm.
think that's quite important because you don't know if he's not saying anything, he might just be bottling it up and not wanting to talk about it. And then maybe you can try and navigate it a bit more together. But it's
Mhm.
okay to be scared and it's okay to also have hope. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
So I did actually reply to this.
Hmm.
I felt it was quite time sensitive. And I literally said the exact same thing. I said, I
Ah.
would go into this thinking, today I am pregnant and take
Hmm.
each day as it comes. Today I am pregnant. I haven't miscarried. I am pregnant. And each day that you remain pregnant is less, statistically, there is less chance of miscarrying, right?
Hmm.
Keep that in mind. And I would just think, that last miscarriage, less than 1% chance of that reoccurring. Let's not worry about
Yeah.
that. 1%'s
That's
nothing.
exactly. That's crazy. That's a very
And these
low
things
odd.
happen. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
great that you know that. I think
Hmm.
I said the same. The husband thing resonated with me because that would be Steve all over. And I
Hmm.
just said, like, just don't talk about it all the time if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Each day that you remain pregnant will become easier for him to actually think this might be happening.
Yeah.
Just stay cautiously optimistic. But I would
Uh,
just say today I am pregnant. Tomorrow
yeah.
we don't worry about tomorrow. Like, let's stop overthinking what could go wrong.
Mm.
I actually saw a quote really weirdly just before I replied to this, hence why I felt so impassioned to reply to her straight away. Let's start overthinking what could go right.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because you are more likely to think about the things that go wrong rather than
Yeah,
the things that are going right. So
always.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And maybe letting
Yeah.
him know that it's impacting you by him not
Mm.
acknowledging the pregnancy at all, because that's not
Yeah.
healthy either.
Yeah. Exactly.
But thank you
Oh.
for that. Hopefully, she did reply and we had a little chat about it. But I
Okay.
said we'll still talk about it on the podcast.
The what
Pregnancy
if?
after loss is a
Mm.
massive, massive one, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
And
Should
what
we
did you want to close the page on this week?
Oh, yes, closing the page. So going back to when we talked about earlier about drinking alcohol. So as we've mentioned a few times now, Tony and I are not drinking alcohol. That's just our choice before we go into our next round of IVF. We just want to see, it's not putting any pressure on us. We're actually quite enjoying not drinking any alcohol. But I want to talk about the shame other people bring and the guilt tripping of not drinking. So we work at breweries, and a lot of the time they're like, "Oh, do you want a drink?" And I think it'd just be absolutely fine to be like, "No, we're not drinking at the moment," or "No, thank you." But they push you. They're like, "Why? Why are you not drinking? Are you boring? What's wrong with
Oh,
you?" All that sort of stuff. And like, where we can joke and be like, "Ha ha ha." it's not funny. It's not even just breweries, it's other people as well. "Why are you boring? Why are you not drinking?" Like, "That's boring,
That
boring."
surprises me because it's so common for people not to drink. Like
Yeah,
Gen Z are just like not drinking at all at the
yeah.
moment, are
My
they? They're
my
all
sister
drinking
barely
matcha and doing
drinks.
Pilates.
Yeah, and, like, no one says to her, "Why are you not drinking?" You know? And why should we have
Alcohol
to
sales are down 40%.
are they?
Maybe that's
Well,
why. They need their
this
sales to go up. Why aren't you
but I
drinking?
mean, at the brewery, for example, we don't even pay, like, we often get offered the drinks, we swap for food for drinks and stuff, so, like, it's not even like we're giving them any more money, but it's not
Mm,
even them, it's other people as well, and I just don't feel like I have to explain myself as to why we're not drinking, and then it's like goes into peer pressure, doesn't it? We're trying
mhm,
to be healthy, like, that should be it. We don't wanna drink. Okay, no worries, here's a non-alcoholic beer.
yeah.
Apparently non-alcoholic beer is actually harder to and more expensive to brew than alcoholic beer, which is crazy. So, yeah, that's why I'd
People
like to
are
close
so
the
much
page
more
on.
health conscious now. And like you say,
Yeah.
look at me. Like, obviously, I was not peer pressured one bit on Saturday night,
Mm.
but I still had the guilt for drinking. And actually, I really enjoy a non alcoholic drink. I think there's
Yeah,
so many good ones. No
there
sake
are
from
now.
Aldi, Gorge.
Yeah, there's loads of different options. Even Tony's tried a whole range of non-alcoholic beers, and there's even, I think I've ever said about it, there's an isotonic one that you can drink which helps with muscle recovery. So he's like, every time we
Oh,
finish a workout class, he's like, "Oh, I'll have my non-alcoholic beer," and he's
yeah.
quite happy drinking that. So I don't feel like we should have to explain ourselves
No.
as to
I'm
why
just
we're not
really surprised.
drinking.
It just feels really archaic because so many
Mm.
people, and also I just think it's such a risky question to ask. Is what if you were a recovering alcoholic?
Yeah,
That puts someone in a really uncomfortable position to have to come up with an excuse. Why should you have to tell someone
but
that?
then yeah, exactly like you said, why should we have to say?
You
Like,
shouldn't, yeah.
yeah.
I
But
just
anyway,
think
so
that's a really, but again, maybe it comes from a frustration from their part of actually that their business sales might be down because
yeah,
lifestyle
and
habits are changing.
I guess to turn the coin, it would be like someone coming to us and we'd be like, "Do you want some fries?" And, "Oh, no, I don't want fries." And we're like, "Oh, but that's what we sell." But then I'd never ask them why you're not eating fries, you know?
Yeah, I think let's not be peer pressured into anything.
No, and not judge it. And I think let's normalize if people aren't drinking, just say, "Good for you," or "Okay." You don't need to
You don't need to ask for an
then go on to it and
explanation.
ask why,
Yeah.
make them feel bad. So, yeah. And finishing our podcast today, should we do a positive affirmation?
I've come up with this affirmation because it's what I told myself on Sunday, and also you told
Oh,
me on Sunday. One off day doesn't undo everything. Yeah. You said
yeah.
it to me. I was saying it to myself. One off day doesn't undo everything. If you have a day, guys, where you've been really clean eating and you have like a bit of a cheat day, or you've gone and had a drink or you haven't been drinking for a while, it doesn't undo everything. You're doing the
Mm,
best you can. There's enough pressure in life in general, never mind when it comes to fertility journeys. Just do the best you can. And one off day won't undo everything.
exactly. Plus, like the one day in the grand scheme of things, if you enjoyed that and you've had a lovely time, that's much more beneficial than then
Yeah.
stressing about the outcome of the one-off day.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a really lovely one to finish on, especially in this podcast, on today's episode.
Yes. Well then,
So
guys, we will be back next week. Do follow, like, subscribe. Please do give us a 5-star rating wherever you're
we've
listening.
actually had some reviews, and I was reading them the other day, and they made my heart feel
Did
really.
we?
Yeah,
Oh,
have
I've
a
not
look on
seen.
Apple. Yeah,
Love
on Apple
that.
Podcast. Thank you so much. Really, really
Yeah.
grateful.
Please do leave
So
us a
yeah.
review. It really helps. Subscribe. Remember, our YouTube drops every Tuesday at 6 p.m. So do go and give us a watch and a subscribe over there too if you want to see us visually. And we will see you again next week. Bye,
Bye.
guys.